per the financial report of 2020, Starbucks has a total of 32,050 stores across 75 countries compared to its 17 stores in 1987, which means in a span of 27 years, it has opened 32,033 stores in that time. And when you do the math, Starbucks has opened an average of 1,186 stores every year, or 3.25 stores every day, aka one store every 9 hours. But most importantly, the reason behind all this is one man, Howard Schultz. So, how did he do it? It is said that at one point of time in New York, if you stood at the right spot, you could see 3 Starbucks stores without having to turn your head. I mean, that's how big Starbucks has become. But the intuitive story behind this huge expansion dates back to 1971. 3 college friends, Jerry Balvin, Gordon Bowker, and Jeff Siegel had one thing in common: their love for coffee. So they decided to start their own coffee business. And there is something critical about that, because when I say coffee, I mean the beans, because the coffee house culture had not come to the USA yet. But do keep that in mind, because I will be coming back to that. Now, with the idea of starting a coffee business, the 3 friends went to meet an important person, Alfred Peet. And why is he so important? Because Pete was the guy who took custom coffee roasting seriously and ran it as a business in the USA, Peet's Coffee. And it's even available today, so Pete would teach them about the business and would supply them with the beans initially, before they could run their own business. Which brings us to the inception of the first Starbucks store, which they opened under Pete's guidance in 1971 at Seattle's Pike Place Market. And it was a hit. They started expanding. Now, the question is, if Starbucks was selling coffee beans, then how did it become the cafe that it is today? That's where Howard Schultz comes in the story. In 1982, Starbucks hired Howard as the director of retail operations and marketing, and as he was working for the company, in 1983 he went on a business trip to Italy. And the one thing about Italy is, even during the 80s, it had this unique cafe culture where the streets were filled with espresso bars and people would hang out there, like basically a third place between home and work. And that was the eureka moment.
I knew it.
Because Howard decided to develop a similar coffee house culture in Seattle. So after coming back to Seattle in 1984, he convinced the Starbucks owners to test the coffee house concept, and it was successful as well. But Schultz was not convinced, because the owners were hardly focusing on it. I mean, why would they? They were convinced that the coffee business was just perfect the way it was, and couldn't be any better. But it was not enough for Howard, so Schultz resigned from Starbucks in 1985. So with a successful business model in hand, Howard opened his own coffee house, which offered brewed coffee made from their very own Starbucks coffee beans. But wait. If Peet's Coffee still exists today as a separate company, and Howard was running his own coffee business, then what happened to Starbucks? Well, do you remember Alfred Peet? Well, by the time it was 1985, the Starbucks founders had acquired the mentor's company, Peet's Coffee. So the founders now possess both Peet's Coffee, the coffee bean business, and Starbucks, the beverage business. And that's when they sold the Starbucks part of the company to Howard Schultz for an estimated $3.8 million. And he later changed the name of his own stores to Starbucks as well. And did you know that Bill Gates Sr. was the one who backed the deal of Howard Schultz to acquire Starbucks? And of course, it was the 1980s. Bill Gates was not Bill Gates yet. What started as 17 stores in 1987 has continued expanding over the years. And as of 2020, Starbucks ranks 3rd for being the most stores opened by any company in the world. During this period of time, Starbucks kept expanding every single year until 2008. And of course, it was the economic collapse. Starbucks did get affected by the turmoil. But there was something else which hurt Starbucks the most. Howard's idea of Starbucks was to keep it a third place between home and work. He wanted to maintain the originality of Starbucks by keeping the freshly roasted coffee, the highly trained baristas, and the premium feel which one gets walking into a Starbucks store. And all these factors played a major role for this huge growth of Starbucks. But when he stepped down as CEO in 2000, all these critical things were compromised for the sake of expansion. So, in a move to restore Starbucks to its initial glory, Howard returned in 2008 as CEO. With an incurring loss of $50 million, Howard closed all the Starbucks stores across the US, for an entire afternoon to reiterate the very principles of the company.
Doing the training and the lost sales was a $50 million expense. $50 million.
And remember, the company at that time was just 7 months away from insolvency, and in spite of all this, Starbucks did rise back again. The Starbucks stock, which was first offered in 1992, started seeing a rise. From then, the expansion of Starbucks never stopped. Its revenues have substantially increased ever since, in fact tripled over the past decade. And apart from this, Starbucks was one of the first companies to offer full health benefits to its employees as early as 1988. But behind all this is a guy who sold blood for money, coming from a family which could not afford a $90 rent per month, and a father who was physically challenged. And to work his way up the ladder from there to where he is today, I've got to say that Howard Schultz is truly the American dream.
I feel so strongly that the reason I'm here is I dream big dreams.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like, and see you guys next week.